Hi everyone, my name's Justin and I'm a pre-K2 teacher here at BASIS Hangzhou. So one of the books that I grew up with that I loved very much, I thought it was very interesting, was a book called Stone Soup. And it's a story about a poor little boy wandering the streets, and he comes across a house with an old lady, and he asks for some food and she says no. And then he convinces her to let him stay for dinner, that he can make soup from a stone. And it's very funny, it's full of trickery, deception, but in the end, the boy and the old woman have a wonderful meal together and in some ways become friends, and they chat, and then the boy decides to move on and see what else he can do at the next house. So it's really fun. I definitely would recommend this if you like interesting and trickery kind of stories.
Hi, I'm Ms. Sterling. I'm the Vice Head of Primary here at BASIS Hangzhou. I'm so excited to be here today, and I have two books that I want to recommend to you. The first one is Dr. Seuss, Oh, the Places You'll Go. This is one of my favorite books because it allows the readers to imagine any place they want to go, anything they want to do. Just put your mind to it and you can do it. The other book I love is Amazing Grace by Mary Hoffman. This book here encourages you, just like the first book, to put your mind to it. And anything that you want to do, you put your mind to it, you can do it, you can excel. So these are the two books that I'm recommending, Oh, the Places You'll Go and Amazing Grace. Come to the library and check them out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Rodriguez, and I wanted to make a book recommendation. It's called The Big Bad Detective Agency. We all love the story of the Big Bad Wolf, but sometimes when we see things from a different perspective, different angle, the story can begin to change. The Big Bad Wolf is brought before Prince Tyrone of Fairylandia. He being accused of destroying the three little pigs' homes. Did he commit this crime? Well, all the evidence is pointing to him, but now there's a fourth little pig who has volunteered to become his personal detective, who believes that the Big Bad Wolf is innocent of the crimes. So check out this book to find out if he's innocent or if he's guilty. This is a must-read book for all of you guys that like detective stories, fairy tales, and different points of views. This is Dr. Rodriguez giving this book a recommendation.
Hello everyone, my name is Ms. Tarryn. I'm the Pre-K1O teacher, and today I'm going to be recommending the Old Macdonald Had a Farm book. The reason why I think this book is so great, especially for our young students, is because they get to learn about the different animals that we find on a farm, as well as the different sounds that these animals make. So I'm going to read a little bit of the story to you and introduce it to you. First we see a dog. So the story goes, Old Macdonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on this farm he had a dog, E-I-E-I-O, with a bow wow here and a bow wow there, here a bow, there a bow, everywhere a bow wow. Old Macdonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Next we have a sheep. Old Macdonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on this farm he had some sheep, E-I-E-I-O, with a bar here and a bar there, here a bar, there a bar, everywhere a bar. Old Macdonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. If you want to learn more about this book, please come and read it. I'm sure you'll have lots of fun.
Hi everyone, I'm Justin from Pre-K2 here at BASIS Hangzhou, and I have a book to recommend to you. This is a really funny one. Not many people have heard of it. It's called Mice Twice. And it's kind of a Tom and Jerry story between a cat and a mouse, and the cat is desperately trying to eat the mouse. But the mouse is much more intelligent and witty, and in so many clever ways, tricks the cat into not eating him and then maybe himself getting eaten by Mouse's friends. Cat likes to invite Mouse over for dinner, and each time Mouse brings a bigger friend than Cat to protect him. It's a really funny story. I definitely recommend it, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
大家好，我是1年级和12年级的中文老师张老师。今天我想给小朋友和大朋友们推荐一本带有中国传统写意风格的绘本《梅雨怪》。在杭州的春夏之交啊，都会经历这样漫长的梅雨过程，天气好像总是阴沉沉的，总是湿哒哒的。哎呀，谁不讨厌这样的天气呢？我们的主人公梅雨怪就生活在一个这样的时空里，可是他从来都没有抱怨过哟，他还是很认真的、有条不紊的安排起自己的生活。他可以和那些因为梅雨而长出来的小虫子成为朋友。那么他每天都在期待着最后1年当中最后唯一的天晴的那一刻。希望我们能一起走进梅雨怪的世界。不管你是一个小朋友，还是像我一样的成年人，都希望你能在绘本里面汲取能量。让我们来一起聆听梅雨怪的生活哲学。他说：“对不能改变的事，我从不抱怨。”
Okay, hi, my name is Mr. Cannon and I am the grade 5 classics teacher. I'm going to talk to you about this book. This one's in Chinese. When I read it, it was in English. The original book is actually in French. The French name is Le Petit Nicolas. In English it's called Little Nicolas, and it's written by a Frenchman called René Goscinny. These are stories about a little schoolboy who lives in France, and he gets up to all sorts of adventures with his friends, and he gets into all sorts of trouble with his teachers and his parents. They're great little stories. Each one's only like 2 or 3 pages long, so you can just read one of them for 5 minutes and really enjoy it, or you can sit there and read through the entire book, which is quite large if you want to. I loved this book when I was a kid. It was one of the things that made me feel like not such a naughty boy when I was at school. So I would very much recommend that you read this book.
Hello everyone. Miss Ma had asked me about a book that I really liked, and my mum came recently from Ireland and she brought with me this book of short stories that my dad used to read to me and my brother when we were young, and some of the stories are really funny and really nice, and I remember them very fondly from when I was young. So it's by a guy called Terry Jones, and he was a comedian long before I was born, and some of the stories are really exciting, some are really interesting, some are quite sad, and some are very funny. And one story that I remember really well was called The Ship of Fools, and it's about a boy who runs away to sea and joins a ship of very silly people. So it's quite short, and if you don't mind, I'll read a little bit for you. So, a young boy named Ben once ran away to sea, but the ship he joined was a very odd one indeed. The captain always wore his trousers tied over his head with seaweed. The boatswain danced the hornpipe all day long from dawn to dusk, wearing nothing but beetroot juice, and the first mate kept 6 families of mice down the neck of his jumper. "This is a rum vessel, me hearty," said Ben to one of the sailors, who was at that moment about to put his head into the ship's barrel of syrup. "It's a ship of fools," grinned the sailor, and he stuck his head in the syrup. "I suppose you all must know what you're doing," murmured young Ben, but the sailor couldn't reply because he was all stuck up with syrup. Just then the captain yelled, "Raise the hanky and sit in the snails," although because he still had his trousers over his head, what it actually sounded like was "Gump for der wump for oomph, woomph, oomph, oomph." "I'm sure he means raise the anchor and set the sails," said young Ben to himself. But whatever it was the captain had said, nobody seemed to be taking the slightest bit of notice. "They must be doing more important things," said Ben to himself. "So I suppose I'd better obey the captain's orders." So Ben raised the anchor by himself and hoisted the sails as best he could, and the ship sailed off into the blue. "Where are we heading, shipmate?" Ben asked the sailor, who was hanging over the side, trying to paint the ship with a turnip and a pot of lemonade. "Goodness knows!" exclaimed the sailor. "It's a ship of fools!" "The captain will know," said Ben, and he climbed up to the bridge where the captain was standing upside down at the wheel, trying to steer with his feet. I'm almost sure you shouldn't steer a ship like that, said Ben to himself. But then, what do I know? I'm just a raw landlubber getting his first taste of the briny. But even so, Ben realized that the captain couldn't see where they were going, because his trousers were still over his eyes. As it happened, the ship was, at that moment, heading straight for a lighthouse. So Ben grabbed the wheel and said, "What's the course, skipper?" "Wumph, wumph, wumph," replied the captain. "Nor-west it is, sir," said Ben, and he steered the ship safely round the lighthouse and off to the open sea. Well, they hadn't sailed very far before a storm blew up. "Shall I take the yardarm and reef the sails, Captain?" yelled Ben. But the captain was far too busy trying to keep his game of marbles still as the ship rolled from side to side. The wind began to howl and the sea grew angry. "I had better anyway," said Ben to himself, and he ran about the ship preparing for the storm ahead. As he did so, the rest of the crew grinned and waved at him, but they all carried on doing whatever it was they were doing. One of them was hanging by his hair from the mainmast, trying to play the violin with a spoon. Another was varnishing his nose with the ship's varnish, while another was trying to stretch his ears by tying them to the capstan and jumping overboard. "Well, I wouldn't have thought this was the way to run a ship," said young Ben. "I suppose they know the ropes, and I'm just learning. Even so, I didn't realize the newest recruit had to do everything. But I suppose I'd better get on with it." And that is what happened to the Ship of Fools, which I have to say, when I was young, had me in hysterics. I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. I'll show you very briefly some of our friends. There we have the captain with his trousers tied over his head, the boatswain wearing beetroot juice, and the first mate with mice down his shirt. And here we are, sailing the lifeboat and eating all the wood for some very, very silly reason. And finally, the war party on the island that finished them off, or we have to assume. So I think it's a really fun little story, and if you ever find the short stories by Terry Jones, they're fantastic. Bye bye, guys.
大家好，我是4年级的中文老师刘老师。今天想和大家推荐的一本书是梁鸠实的《动物世界》。不少同学可能读过动物有关的书籍，不过像寓言故事，很多时候是通过寓言来写人的，而梁鸠实的故事是经过实际的观察，真正的去写动物的真实生活。那么作者梁鸠实，他也被称作是日本的西顿。不过相对于西顿的故事，这套书呢没有那么的沉重悲壮，更适合我们孩子来读，特别是1到4年级的孩子。这本书呢一共是有5本，那么每一本故事啊都非常的跌宕起伏，好看又好读。比如你会看到作为雁群首领的残雪，他会怎么巧妙地躲过猎人的陷阱呢？你还能看到我们的独角麻雀妈妈面对强悍的敌人时会怎样保护她的鸟宝宝。同学们读了这些书以后，不仅可以看到动物不屈的精神，更能感受到生命应该具有的品格。除此之外，这套书的文笔啊非常的细腻优美，很适合同学们来学习中文和写作。希望大家有机会能来读一读这套书。
Hi guys, I'm Mr. Minall, 7th grade English teacher. The book I'd like to recommend to you is Watership by Richard Adams. What's unique about this book is it's about bunny rabbits. It's about them leaving their home and going on a long adventure to find a new place to live. During this time, they have many narrow escapes and avoid death sometimes. Others do die along the way. They meet many different societies. They have many different adventures. I like this book because even though it's meant to be a children's book, it's also very good for adults. It teaches a lot about overcoming obstacles, experiencing loss, and dealing with chaos in our lives, even if we don't particularly want to have those things. So as Richard Adams said himself, he doesn't believe in children's books. He thinks books should be open to everyone. So I think this is a great book if you want to transition from those young childhood books into more adult books you'll be reading in middle school and high school. Give it a try.
Hello, My name is Jaszberenyi. Students call me Mr. Istvan. I teach middle school and high school classes at BASIS Hangzhou. And right now I'm sitting here because I'd like to recommend you an author. His name is Jules Verne, and these books were a very interesting read when I was in school. The interesting fact about this author that many of his ideas he wrote about in the mid-1800s became reality sooner or later, like space travel, underwater adventures with a submarine, and so on. This one, called A Journey to the Center of the Earth, hasn't become reality yet. It's about a small group of scientists who try to reach the center point of planet Earth. Well, probably this is a challenge is waiting for your generation. Children, think big and work towards it.
Hi, my name is Tyson Scott, and I am a history teacher in grade 6 and grade 12 here at BASIS. BASIS Hangzhou. I also love books, so it took me a little while to think about the books that I wanted to talk about, but I really wanted to make sure that I had a range of authors that covered at least a few different races and ethnicities and at least, one of another gender. So here I am. The first book I'd like to talk about is Ernest Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. As you can see, it's a very short book. I would also recommend his short stories and other novels by Hemingway. But this book is something that means a lot to me because it was the first time I read an Ernest Hemingway book, and it exposed me to the idea of man versus nature, which I grew to love. I grew to love struggles of men versus nature, or even animals versus a new environment in nature, and how people can do amazing and incredible things and survive almost anything. And that was what this book means to me. Another book would be Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye. So Toni Morrison, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, brilliant woman. Unfortunately, she's passed away. And this is about abuse. I mean, it's about what can happen when even a genius, someone with great talent, is left in a situation where they suffer. And they also feel joy, they also have good experiences, but they suffer great pain that brings them to new heights, to new levels of achievement. To go from, writing books like this to getting all the way to winning the Pulitzer Prize for the book Jazz. So this book is very significant to me because Toni Morrison is one of my favorite authors. I reread her books a few summers ago when I was traveling, a few of the books. So not just this one, but she has others that I would recommend that you try to read. And the last one is the new one for me, The Three-Body Problem. And I wish I could pronounce Mr. Liu's name correctly, but I cannot. The first name, still can't pronounce it correctly. However, I thought he was overrated. I read Gibson and a lot of other really good science fiction and science fantasy writers, and I thought that everybody was making a big deal because finally a Chinese author had written some good science fiction books. And guess what? I was wrong. He's just as good as they say he is. He's as good as anybody I've read recently, and I think that no matter what culture you come from, you need to read this guy and follow his writings. His life story is also very interesting. But The Three-Body Problem is phenomenal stuff. And if you have the time and you want to relax and really enjoy a new way to look at the future, that's always the thing. I'm looking for interesting ways for people to look at the future. I believe that Mr. Liu is a fantastic place to start, and you should be very proud of him if you're an Asian, because he swept a lot of prizes that no Chinese person had ever won before. So that's my opinion on these 3 books. I love books. Read when you can. And don't take for granted the time that you have to read fiction in school, because when you get older, you're going to be forced to read a lot more nonfiction, and you'll remember how precious your reading time was when you were younger. Bye.
Good morning, BASIS community, students, parents, and teachers. My name is Chen. I'm the Dean of Middle School, and here I'm about to introduce one of my favorite books. It's from Michelle Obama. The book title is Becoming. It has the English version and holding in my hand a Chinese version. So in the story, in the book, it talks about how Michelle Obama grew up as a black little girl to an attorney, graduated from Harvard Law School, and then become Black Obama's wife, and then go to White House and become the first Black First Lady. All right, so in the book, it has 3 chapters. The first chapter is Becoming Me. It tells a lot about personal stories. In this part, you will figure out she is like us. She's no different. She has, the school days trauma. She has the initial family, nuclear families trauma, but she grew out of it. And on the second chapter, she talked about becoming us. And here, she vote for, she vote for her own group, and she go to law school. She met her love for the whole life. It's about pursuing her needs and pursuing the needs for her group, for her ethnicity group. And on the last chapter, she talked about becoming more. And the story never ends. I will leave the last chapter for your discovery. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mr. Isaac, and I am the literature teacher for grade 9. So today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite books, S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. So this is the story of Pony Boy and his brothers who live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a tale of how a group of boys who've lost their parents live in a poorer part of town, and the struggles they go through as they try to make sense of the world around them. So in this time, you have 2 big kind of gangs in their town. You've got the Socias, which are the rich kids, and then you have the Greasers, which are the poor boys who grease up their hair. They're caught up in all these social conflicts and the roles that they're forced to kind of adapt in order to survive. But Pony Boy starts to see through and think, what is really his purpose of being here? As he encounters a murder, he goes through this journey of exploration of what it means to be a young man growing up in society, what it means to have things like friendship and staying true to yourself. I would recommend this book for anyone interested in storytelling and who is interested in compelling characters. S.E. Hinton actually wrote this when she was 18, so she was a high school student, and she wrote based on the life around her.
Hello everybody, my name is David Britten. I'm the World History and Geography 2 teacher at BASIS here in Hangzhou. One of the books that I would recommend is Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. He does an excellent job of making connections of events and things that happen in society and latent effects that they have in other aspects of society. I find it very interesting. I think most of you will as well. He has several books, and all of them kind of lay out the same way. Outliers is another one. David and Goliath is another one. But there's a long list of books he has that I think you might enjoy. And also, Freakonomics is another book that I think you may enjoy.
Hello， 大家好，我是 K 班的老师 Miss 郭。在我们2023年杭贝阅读周这样的一个盛会当中，我非常有幸能够为大家推荐我个人非常喜欢的书籍。这也是我去年阅读的书当中我最喜欢的一部。它是一个科幻小说，名字叫做《旗主之声》。这本小说其实在科幻小说史上还是非常具有里程碑意义的，并且它的作家是波兰的著名作家和哲学家，他名字叫做斯坦尼斯瓦夫莱姆。这位作家其实也被称为凭借一己之力将波兰的科幻小说提升到世界水平的小说作家。 这个话我们听起来非常的耳熟，其实我们近来也经常看到刘慈欣的一些作品，我们也是这样子来给刘慈欣这样子的一个赞誉的。那么这本书呢，它是一本非常非常特别的科幻小说，在我看来，它特别的地方有很多，其中第一点就是它在这个行文结构上非常的特别。很多其他的小说我们可能翻开来之后，会看到有比方说制读者的话呀，编者的话呀，以及或者是这个书的前言，这本书也有，可是它呢玩了一个小花招，也就是当我们看到编辑的话的时候，当我们以为这个是编辑的话的时候，其实这已经是这本小说的正文内容了。所以当你第一次看，你没有意识到你已经在读小说正文的时候，你会真的以为这本书就是像编辑话当中所写到的，它是一个叫做霍格斯的数学家留下来的一本遗作，但实际上这是我们的作者进行的结构上的开了一个小小的玩笑，并且也是非常非常有意义的一个玩笑，因为这可以帮助我们更快的进入到这本书的世界当中去，让我们能够更快的相信，确实有这样的一个数学家，而他参与了其主之声这样一个非常宏大的项目。这是第一点。然后第二个，这个书非常非常特别的一个地方在于这本书它和别的一般的老套的科幻小说的套路是很不一样的。可能别的科幻小说它会是这样的一个内容，比方说我们收到了一段宇宙信号，我们已经破译了这段宇宙信号，然后故事就开始从此发展起来。可是这本小说的内容呢，是我们收到了一段宇宙信号，我们各个方面的人员想尽了各种办法去破译它，然后我们失败了，这本书就结束了。所以但你要说这本书它是一个关于破解宇宙信号的书，也并不完全是。它只是借助这样的一个事件，实际上描写了在遇到这个事件的时候，地球上的不同的人类，他们具有不同身份的人类，他们是如何在这样的一个事件当中进行应对的。以及这本小说其实还有一个很特别的地方，就是它除了是一个科幻小说，讲到了一些未来呀、科技方面的事情，它还是一本非常非常具有哲学思考的一个小说。这个可能和我们的作家本身哲学家的身份也有关系。我可以给大家阅读其中的一段，也是我觉得这本书当中非常核心的一个内容。就在这本书的29页，他就提到给大家的一个思考，他说当一对蚂蚁在路上遇到了一具哲学家的尸体，他们也是会好好利用的。那他这句话的意思其实是想在说，我们知道哲学家其实他最有意义的是他脑中那样深邃的一些思考和非常深邃非常聪明的一些智慧。但是当遇到他的尸体的是蚂蚁的时候，那些蚂蚁能够利用的并不是这些它最精华的智慧和思考，而是它的肉体和营养。那这就很像我们这本书这个奇数之声计划遇到的事情一样，当我们接受到了外太空非常高级文明科技的一些信息的时候，我们是否能真正理解，我们是否像这一对遇到哲学家的蚂蚁一样，只能够浅浅的探一下，甚至没有探到它最精华的部分。这正是这本书当中贯穿始终想要讨论的其中的很重要的一点。当然还有其他非常非常多具有哲理思考的内容，大家在阅读这本书的过程当中，除了能够享受一般科幻小说所具有的这种对于未来和对于科技的一些畅想，也可以享受到一些非常深邃的哲学的思考。希望大家能够喜欢这本书。拜拜。